you came from a secular background, originally from Washington, D.C., and now you're one of the well-known names in the Breslov world, and not even just Breslov, but Jewish world in general today. You have a very well-known name, and how did that transpire that you came from a secular background in the United States, Washington, D.C., to this big rabbi in Eretz Israel?
Okay, well, I came from a secular background, but our home was a very warm Jewish home. My father was from Canada, and my father was the only Jewish pilot, a fighter pilot in World War II in the Royal Canadian Air Force. My mother and her family were the only ones of our family that made it out of the Holocaust. They're in Grodno Ghetto, and they came to the United States in 1939. And right after the war, my mother met my father. And so we had a very strong Zionistic family. My father went through a lot of anti-Semitism in the Canadian Air Force, even though they were fighting the Nazis. That the Goyim within the Canadian Air Force were very discriminative. And my mother, from the family's history, even though they weren't religious, the Zaydis were religious. My elder Zaydis were very special Yidden. From my mother's side, they come from the Noida B'Yehuda. Mm-hmm. And from my father,
you've got a rich lineage.
Yeah, from my father's side, we're Itzchak Drovich Reiniklach, and we have the 4 generations go. 3 generations before me. In other words, my elder Zaydis, they were already Talmidei Chachomim and Rabbonim. But when the Zaydis got into all types of movements, the Bund and Zionism and all types of things, and they left Europe, then they also left behind the Frumkeit. So our family had we had a warm Jewish family. I'm going to give you an example. They're conservative Jews. Our family, we would have a Shabbos table, then you get up from the Shabbos table and sit down and watch television, or go out on a date or do something like that. And there's a lot of Yidden around that. My dream was to go to Eretz Yisrael and to be a Jewish cowboy, and that's what I did. So in order to do that, I went to University of Maryland. I studied agriculture, and I was with only the guys from Alabama and North Carolina. I mean, what Jewish guys study agriculture? There's one other Jew in the faculty of agriculture, and he was in pre-vet. He wanted to be a veterinarian.
Yeah.
So he had to get a bachelor's degree in agriculture and animal science in order to go to veterinary school. Mm-hmm. But outside of this Jewish guy, they wanted to be a veterinarian. I was the only one.
This is it.
Yeah, that's it. This is it. And my specialty was in mountain orchards, irrigation, horticulture, greenhouses, stuff like that. And I wanted to be in the Army because I heard what happened to my mother's. I'd heard stories about what happened to the family all the time in the Holocaust, and what happened to my father in the Air Force. For example, he had 2 different battles going on. He had a battle with the Nazis and a battle with the anti-Semitic Goyim within the Air Force. And I decided I want to be a Jewish soldier. So from the time of high school, I would murder myself, kill myself. I'd force myself to run and to work out and this and that. So I would be in good situation. I wanted to be a commando Air Force. And this is exactly what I did. This is exactly what he did. In a lot of areas, as a young man, I was lacking. I wasn't the smartest kid in school, but I would work hard.
Yeah.
And I was far. I ran cross country, and I played in a wrestling team. And all the other, again, I was only Jew. The Goyim, they were always stronger than me, and I always had more desire than anybody else. I had less physique and less brains and less everything, but I always had more desire than anybody else. And this is the way it was in the Army. And I decided this is what I want to do. I want to get a degree in agriculture. I did it. And I did a 4-year course in 3 years, went all year round. The day I graduated, I was on a plane to Eretz Yisrael.
Literally that day?
That day.
Wow.
That day. In fact, when I finished the final exam and they sent me the degree, I didn't stay for the celebration. And they sent me the degree in the mail.
You had your goal in mind and you know where you were heading.
That's exactly it. I mean, I did not want to waste 48 hours outside of Eretz Yisrael. Okay.
And you had never been there before?
I had been there once.
Oh, you had been there once.
Yeah, I'd been there once.
So you had your mind set up as to what's going on and where you're heading and how it's going to work. But outside of that, it's just like you're getting your degree and you're going back.
I'm down the road. I'm down the road. This is the way we do, and this is something. So we came to Eretz Yisrael, and I went to kibbutz, and went through a whole thing that's called gibush. It's testing and saying if you're saying when it got accepted in the special forces, and it's one of an elite unit in the Israeli army, infantry reconnaissance.
So when you came into the army, you've related on a number of occasions. Um, you've had some really fascinating stories, and I believe some of these stories is what really led you to complete your teshuva experience, shall we say. Um, Maybe you can relate what you would find as your most powerful moments while you were in the army.
Okay, there's a lot of things that we can't talk about because I'm not allowed to talk. I could talk about something that was already been publicized.
So a
When
lot
I
of things
made,
are still classified, or
yeah, it's not some things don't have permission to talk about and to go through and get permission. Some things I don't even think the Israeli army lets us talk about because if people know the miracles that happened to me, to look at the miracles that happened to me, now a person has to make tshuva. You have to see it. That Hashem's fingerprints are all over my life, everything that happened to me. But I had to, I had my head in this world rather than the next world. I didn't even know much about the next world. I knew all about the body and everything oriented to the body, like another American kid. And the same thing with an Israeli secular kid. And who's thinking about the next world?
yeah,
But when you're so close to death all the time, you got to start thinking. You got to start thinking, hey, wait, is this what it's all about? And I was brought to a very close death experience, a near-death experience in 1982 in the First Lebanon War. We had a mission in Beirut, and there was no way to get out of there alive. And I saw one miracle after another miracle. And this was a famous thing when the PLO, as like what they do, the Arabs, the difference between an Arab soldier and an Israeli soldier. They say an Israeli soldier takes a baby carriage and puts it behind him and
Yeah.
defends it. The Arab soldier puts the baby carriage in front of him, crashes them, and uses it to hide behind. Well, the Arabs, they put Katyusha missile batteries in the Russian embassy because they knew Israel can't bomb the Russian embassy because that's Russian sovereign territory. And they were firing when the Israeli army tried to enter Beirut. It was very successful the first 7 days of the war, and they made from the Israeli border, cleaned the terrorists out of southern Lebanon, made it up to Beirut. And then when they tried to enter Beirut, there was a lot of casualties. And they decided why the casualties? Because these Katyusha missile batteries from the Russian embassy. They couldn't knock them out. And then Menachem Begin was prime minister, and Arik Sharon was defense minister. Arik Sharon wanted to bomb the Russian embassy. He didn't care. Menachem Begin said no, he didn't want World War III. And so what they did, they sent in 12 commandos. I don't think they expected them to come back. As it was, only 8 of the 12 came back, standing on 2 feet.
and you were one of those.
And I was
commandos.
one of them. Yeah, I was one of them. And they didn't take into consideration the most important variable, and that's Ribbono Shel Olam. Okay. And when the Ribbono Shel
This
Olam,
probably is one of the most dangerous
Exact.
missions that Israel could
yeah,
carry out.
yeah, and this we completed it, Baruch Hashem. It's a long thing, and it just what happened. There was no way to complete that mission, no way. But the Ribbono Shel Olam did big miracles, not because of any of our brains and not because of our talent, but it's only the Ribbono Shel Olam. There was nowhere to go. I was in a crossfire, and had snipers on both sides. Had Syrian artillery in the back of me, and the Katyushas in the front of me, and there's nowhere to go, and nobody to help. You got nowhere to turn to. And when there's nobody else to turn to, and I said, Hashem, I didn't know where it came from, Hashem. And I heard this voice inside my head that said, laser foil. I never heard that. I heard it once in my life when they called me up to shul, my bar mitzvah, and they called me up to Torah in a conservative shul in Silver Spring. And they said, Yamod Eliezer Foil Ben Yaakov. And I just, who's calling me laser foil? I thought I checked out. I thought I was out. The pressure was too much. And then I had this feeling, nafshi yudas mo, this feeling in my neshoma, like a voice I heard in my neshoma, not something you hear in your ears, like a boss called. But you're going to get out of here. And then when I get you out of here, you will know Ani Hashem. Ani Hashem. All right. And there's no such thing. One thing, a very good character of Israeli Special Forces soldiers, they're not kfiyut tova. They're not ingrates. And so I decided that moment, if this is emes, if I'm not going crazy, and this is the really thing, and if somehow I'm going to get out of here, then from this moment, my life no longer belongs to me, it belongs to Rabbi Shalom. Rabbi Shalom kept his end of the deal. Not only did we get out, we completed the mission. There was a series of events, boom, 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 one miracle after another miracle.
Why you? There's so many people who go through the Israeli army. They come out, they experience miracles. Why do you think that you experienced such a special guidance and turn of events?
Why me? First of all, I always say what my beloved Rav and spiritual guide, Rabbi Shalom Arush says, "Lo magia li klum." I don't deserve a thing. And that's a question for Rabbi Shalom. That's not a question for me. But I think my name, the name we get, it tells about us. My name is Eliezer Raphael, and you turn around. What's Eliezer? Keli Azoli. Hashem help me. Raphael, that's lefoer, to honor your name. That I'm the Rabbi Shalom's tool to do a sanctification for his name. That my job in this world is to publicize Hashem's name all over the world. And this is what Hashem has enabled me to do, to take the light of Rav Shalom. Rav Shalom is the light of Emunah in this generation. And even though people think, well, he knows Rav Berlin was his Rebbe, but what Rav Shalom spread light of Emunah, like our book, The Garden of Emuna, that's way past 1.5 million copies. Nobody ever believed in the Yiddish world. Out of Tehillim and Chumash, there could be such a book. But this is light that Hashem gave Rav Shalom directly. And Hashem has given me the privilege to spread this in the English-speaking world.